do. The application? Welcome. I think the mics are on. I call to order the regular session at 7:10, and the date is Wednesday, April 9th. And if we could please all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Could we have the roll call, please, Dale? Present. Here.
Here.
Thank you, Dale. Before we open the public hearing, there's just a few dates. I've left some papers at everybody's table here. The South Kingstown Police Benevolent Association is doing their third annual Honor Guard fundraiser on April 26th from 4 to 9 at the Elks. I got a phone call from John Foreman asking to make people aware. And also I left at your table, the Elks is sponsoring a team for the Autism Project 12th Annual Imagine Walk-In Family Fun Day. So you have that. That is on April 27th at Goddard Park. And I just want everyone to know that the Red Sox trophy is going to be at the Elks. And I believe it is April 25th. It's on a Friday. They are welcoming all of the youngsters in town to come and see it from 11:30 to 1:30, the Red Sox champion trophy. So that was just for the good of the order. And with that said, please, Karen.
Also, Senator Whitehouse will be at the Elks.
16th?
The
I
16th?
think
Yes,
it's the 16th.
for a spaghetti and meatball, free spaghetti and meatball dinner for anyone who would like to attend. So I just I would let that out.
And last town
Time
council.
on that?
I
Karen?
think 6 o'clock?
Yeah,
Six,
I
probably.
think it's 6. I have it in my
I should have brought it with
I have it in
me,
my
but-
calendar, so we'll check that before. And last town council meeting, I mentioned May 8th at the Elks. It is to honor all of our seniors in town. They're going to do that again. So, with that said, I'd like to open the public hearing. This is a public hearing with our school committee. Participation relative to the town council's preliminary budget for the fiscal year 2014-15 as adopted on March 17th, 2014. And this public hearing will address both the general fund and the school fund. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to Maureen Cotter to see if she has any comments.
I'll open it up with some general comments about the school budget. Even though we've experienced some serious reductions through the funding formula, we'd like people to know that we have not reduced student programs, that in fact we have been growing programs for students. We have a very solid educational strategic plan, and we are accomplishing great things in the school department. Our budget is a student-centered budget. It's based on data and best practices. Our focus is to minimize any impact on students or the educational core, and we seek to maintain and support programs in keeping with our community values. And we'd like to give kudos to our staff for being able to get to that point, and we also want to thank very much the town staff and the town council for their support. It's great working with the town council. We experience a great working relationship. And I might add that the increase is less than 1% in terms of the town transfer. Any specifics? The numbers guy. Thank you.
I know that in speaking with Dr. Stringfellow today, she does want to make the public aware that she is at her son's confirmation tonight. So I just wanted to let people know that.
Well, then, at this point, I would also add that we have several members of the school committee not in attendance, and many of them are away due to business, and some of them will be coming in a little bit later, coming from work.
With that said, I didn't know before I turn it over to Steve if there's any comments, John? John? Steve, you have the floor. Thank you.
The town council's preliminary budget was adopted on March 17th of this year. The preliminary budget is subject to 2 public hearings scheduled tonight and tomorrow night. I'd note that this is the 10th session of budget review and development that the town council has participated in for the 2014-2015 preliminary budget. Should taxpayers wish to propose changes to the preliminary budget, a petition may be filed on or before April 21st by 4 o'clock with no less than 25 signatures of qualified electors requesting adjustments and amendments to the preliminary budget. All petitions meeting the requirements of the charter must be considered by the council at the budget adoption for the final budget to be held on April 28th of this year. Persons that are dissatisfied with the final budget that's adopted by the town council on April 28th have an additional opportunity where they may petition with the use of 200 signatures from qualified electors requesting to bring budget questions to an all-day referendum, provided that the question to be asked involves a reduction or an increase of no less than $250,000 in change to either the municipal budget or the school fund transfer. Those 200 signature petitions would need to be filed no later than May 12th at 4 o'clock with the town clerk's office. I'd also add that any petitions, either at 25 signatures or at 200, need to be pre-approved through the town clerk's office prior to the collection of the signatures to ensure that the proper question framing has been conducted and that it's an unbiased question. The town council's preliminary budget provides funding for 8 independent funds. They include the general fund, school fund, Peacedale Office Building Fund, Neighborhood Guild, senior programs, water, wastewater, and solid waste programs. The general fund and school fund, as well as the seniors program, use property tax dollars to assist in the funding of those programs. I want to look at the warrant that's presented here this evening. The first page of the warrant, which was published in the April 3rd edition of the South County Independent, documents the general fund and what the implications and impact will be with adoption of the council's preliminary budget and its impact on the tax levy and tax rate. As noted, we're anticipating a general fund budget of $74,866,254. Of that amount, a total of $66,599,977 would be needed from property tax, with adjustments necessary for proration, overlay, and elderly abatements. We would need to collect $67.6 million. We're expecting motor vehicles of about $3.5 billion in tax revenue, which means that there's a net of $64,106,000 that will be raised from taxes. We're estimating at this point, as shown on the warrant, a projected increase of 4 cents. I'll update you that based on the most recent roll adjustments, and we'll be making roll adjustments until the final roll is adopted on June 15th, we're forecasting that we're in between 3 and 4 cents at this point, probably closer to the 3 cent range. So we're looking at about a 3 cent increase, and we're also looking at an overall increase of $520,259. I would note that there was a change in the manner in which we set the tax levy this year. We changed the methodology employed by elderly tax abatements. In the past, we would abate the taxes In the future and in the 14-15 years, rather than abate taxes, we are actually going to exempt those persons participating in the program, so we will not be raising the tax dollars. Normally, we would raise $340,000 in tax revenue and then abate those dollars. Without having that in the tax levy, it means that we were able to reduce by about $290,000 the amount of taxes to be collected. So when I compare apples to apples, the true increase in property taxes from current year to next year with the adoption of the budget would be an $810,000 increase, or 1.2%. I think as council, school committee is certainly aware, the projection that we made during the initial budget presentation was a 2% levy adjustment. We said at that time that we would work to come in below that number, and certainly we have succeeded at that with the budget that's been adopted by the council. The 4%, which is the maximum allowed by the state, has always been looked at as a maximum rather than a goal to be achieved in the development of the budget, either at a staff level or at the town council level. I want to move to page 2 of the warrant. Page 2 provides, on the first column, a summary of the general fund. Again, we are looking at a total budget of $74,866,000. I do note that this year we are showing the 2013-2014 year as a restated budget. The reason that that is done is that with the change in financial management system software that is used by the town, we changed the chart of accounts that is being employed in all funds other than the school fund. The school fund chart of accounts is set by the State Department of Education. There were no changes. So you'll see that for the column dealing with the school fund, we're not showing a restated budget, but the actual appropriated and budget adopted by the school committee for the 13-14 year. The adoption of the new chart of accounts provides us with greater detail analysis as to how money is being spent and in what true cost is of operating different municipal functions. By moving dollars into the operating budgets associated with personnel benefits, we're able to give a better estimate of what the true costs are of providing public safety services, public works services, general administration. So as you see with the restated budget, what we have not changed is the bottom line. The budget that was adopted for 2013-14 is unchanged other than on the allocation that's presented on the form. So there's no change in bottom line. The $74,195,340 budget adopted last year has just been redefined in terms of the object codes that are used to identify the expense cost centers. I do note that the transfer to the school fund at $49,614,000, as indicated by Dr. Carter, is a $482,628 increase. That's $482,000 of the total $670,000 increase in the overall general fund. So we're looking at about a 0.9% increase in the general fund budget for the year, less than 1%. The overall increase, as I mentioned earlier, as far as property taxes, will be about $814,000 when we restate the tax needs for the elderly tax exemptions versus the tax abatements. We've also made some adjustments in revenues, unassigned fund balance. We are looking to decrease that from $1 million down to $825,000 as far as revenue availability. If there's questions on the general fund, I'd be glad to address them at any time during the presentation. If there are none, I'll move to the school fund. The school fund is presented as adopted by the school committee. I will make reference to the fact that the budget for the 2014-15 year is actually a decrease of $23,027 from the adopted budget for the 13-14 year. The revenue statement, however, shows that there is a $313,655 decrease in state aid. This is something that the school committee and council has been aware of, that based on the funding formula that was established by the General Assembly 3 years ago, we will see approximately a $300,000 a year loss over a 7-year term. So we're losing state aid by the amount of $313,600. We're also anticipating a reduction in net assets that are transferred to the operating budget of $135,000 from $535 down to $400, and about $50,000 in loss or reductions in the Medicaid line item. Overall, miscellaneous local revenues is down another $192,000. So essentially, you're losing $313,000, you're losing another $192,000 in your local revenues. That's where you're seeing the increase of the 1% or $482,000 in new tax dollars that are necessary. So you've got a reduction in expenditures, yet a sizable increase of 1% in the cost of property tax share going into the school fund. If there's any questions on the school fund, I'm sure that the school committee would like to address them. Meg?
I just have a question on the school fund professional services. That seems to be one of the biggest, it's not huge, but what is the difference in last year's spending versus this year's spending that we're gonna increase professional services? It's a small thing, but I just wanna kind of wrap my arms around that.
Yeah, I'll have to look that up. If you want to go on, I can look it up in
It's not a major issue, I don't want you to dwell over it, I'm just looking to see what that increase is, and I certainly understand benefits and salaries. I just wanted to know what professional services was.
Some of the changes, Meg, is in data processing services that we're going from 92,000 to 110. We're also looking at an increase in legal fees for the year that would be going up from an estimated 69,000 in the current year budget up to 102,000, and a 25,000. For legal services are up 25,000, as well as the need for.
It's probably the cost of doing business.
There's those type of changes that are necessary.
Yeah, sure.
In the budget, but it is a sizable increase of about $189,000 over the current year.
Steve, I just want a clarification. During the public hearing, do you want to wait till the end to take questions from the public, or do you want them to be addressed each section?
I think each section would be easiest, so we
Okay.
can deal with any questions the public has.
Okay, thank you. I know that this is the time if you would like to come to the microphone with any questions about the school department budget. It's part of this main budget. And if you could just state your name for the record.
My name's Tia Beckman. I was a parent of a student in the school district. So I advocated while my child was there, spoken with the school committee, and now I'm coming here. I was scribbling, doing math, and trying to keep up with your numbers. And from what I could see is the funds for therapists is going down roughly, over 250,000, and some teaching staff is going down over 125,000, from what I can read, if my numbers are correct. Are these special ed teachers and therapists? Do you know?
the therapist would be special ed. In the other staff reductions would be across the board, would be a variety of areas. Some of them would be teachers, some would be in the special ed area, and some would also be in support staff.
Dr. Sorry.
Thank you. I also understand that there's going to be computers bought for the students. And what I'm concerned about is my quick reading in the newspaper said the teachers were going to be developing programs. I'm concerned that some of the therapists will be reducing, some of the teachers will be reducing. And what I'm concerned about was the dyslexia, which is a language-based learning disability, which affects reading, writing, math, understanding instructions. In the years that I advocated for a student, I was not able to get successful programming. It takes money. I understand that. But in the long run, it would save money. It would save legal fees, and it would save resource teacher time. Narragansett, as of the 2012 year, had significantly better scores than we did for the special ed department in reading. Tomorrow I can bring all the statistics and the background information if you want. What they have is different than we have, and I bring it up because of funding. They have an administration in special ed that is advocating for all kinds of learners. And many of these students, because I've spoken with teachers and I have spoken with families. Families are very happy. They understand their child's learning disabilities, and the technology is well integrated. They have skilled professionals teaching people how to use this and pass it on. So in the end, a lot of these kids are 504 plans rather than needing the resources. So I would really question cutting or finding a different way of developing programming for the language-based learning disabled, which is many of our learning differences people, setting aside funding to develop programming. I bring it up here because we are concerned with the mental health, with our hospitals, with kids cutting themselves, with our criminal juvenile delinquents. Many of them have reading disabilities, and if dyslexia isn't treated, it affects kids learning how to learn from reading in future. CCRI, 60% of the students there require remedial courses. 10th, when my son was in 10th grade, 100% of the students that year flunked proficiency in math. There's a lot of statistics that I can go through. If anybody wants any information from me, I would be very happy to be available. But I do ask the town council to be critical, to be aware of what the school budget's costs, what cuts are being made in the special ed department, because last year I believe it was something like 300,000, and specifically what is it this year? I have grave concerns. Thank you.
T, I think Dr. Anthony Mega had a comment.
First of all, we certainly always appreciate the support you've given us through the years in regards to education in South Kingstown. So I want to acknowledge that. And many of the issues you brought out, I think, are going to be questions that are better answered by our central administration in regards to educational methodology. Are you not hearing me, or?
Some I don't hear,
Okay.
but I have addressed administration.
Okay.
so.
In regards to decision-making, budgetary decision-making, we do look at a decline in enrollment and also a decline in the pupils identified for special education. And so, I don't think it's, I think when you look at those numbers, the gross numbers, you also have to look at, the amount spent per pupil. And I know that the superintendent and administration have been very aware of that as they present that to the school committee.
What I question is how are the students being identified? Because the many years that I was there, the students were not being identified for dyslexia. Decoding, which is sounding out of words necessary for learning from reading, was not being identified. So I think we are not identifying. The teachers do not learn about this in college. And so they are not skilled in developing screens to be able to identify these kids. So it is a big issue. The federal government is even trying to pass a bill now to please states recognize dyslexia in developed programming.
I'm just going to, do you mind, Jonathan, if I just, there was a committee formed, I don't know, probably 2 or 3 years ago, and I think you served on that committee, Tia, in reference, there was a committee formed that met all year, and I think you served on that committee with the superintendent
Yes,
in
I
reference
did.
to a lot of issues. And last year, there were 2 bills up at the General Assembly to get school departments to recognize dyslexia as a learning-based, reading disability. And one of the bills got passed. I know that I gave testimony. You were there that night, too, in the auditorium. And one of the bills got passed to form the committee, and I hear that didn't really, even though the bill was passed, there's not much traction. There are a couple of more bills in the General Assembly this year that I have passed on to Dr. Stringfellow, and she's looking at them and passed them on to the school committee. So there's still some work up at the General Assembly to ask the school departments to recognize dyslexia as a learning-based disability. So still work, and I'm sure you'll be up at the State House doing testimony.
I've testified to the state also, and I've also asked about that study committee and have gotten no response, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't think it really grew a lot of
That's why I'm
legs.
begging
Yeah.
here. Thank you.
Jonathan?
Yeah, I just want to say that I appreciate your concerns. I voted against the school budget this year. I'm the only person in this room that did vote against the school budget, largely because of concerns, such as what you're bringing forward. There's a lot of cuts are happening. For the current school year, we had about a reduction of 30 to 35 staff. That's in 1 year. Okay, and so now this current budget is going to cut another 12. And it's talked about enrollment decline, but the enrollment decline for the current year and the year moving forward is a 2% decline. And the staffing cuts that we're talking about for last year and now this year moving forward is 8%. Okay? And from the standpoint of how I look at it, I've been involved as an advocate before I was able to be fortunate enough to serve the town in this way, that we had made great strides in our school district. And right now I'm extremely concerned that we're leveling off. We still have a great program, and the people that work in this school district are phenomenal.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So it's not the teachers,
Yeah,
it's not the aides, it's not the students,
that's right.
it's not the community members,
Yeah.
it's what's happening in these meetings. And so this budget year, they say we have all these meetings. That's what you'll hear from a lot of the time. Oh, we have all these meetings. But I can tell you on the school side, there was only one public meeting where this budget moving forward was discussed. One meeting that it was discussed. And for me, that's a great concern.
I'd
So
also...
thank you for bringing that forward.
I
And it-
agree with you. The school district is very professional. It's bringing in outside professionals for this one area would be helpful. Thank you.
I didn't know if John Rashad or Maureen, I know I have a few comments at the state level, but John or Maureen, did you have comments?
Well, I'd just make a couple of quick observations. First of all, we had an amended budget put toward us, what was it, at the last meeting, March? That was unanimous vote on the part of the school committee, so I want to bring that to your attention. Another thing I want to bring to your attention, anybody, any one of us that has personal experience with a child with dyslexia feels your pain, and so we understand. And the other thing is, the school committee has really guided the staff in terms of where we want to allocate our funds. And the one thing we don't want to do is impact programs. And so the superintendent and the staff have really looked at the resources and really looked at it in the terms of student need. And that is the way that they are proposing the budget as we are discussing this evening.
John, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to Meg's question about the purchase services. As the manager said, many of the increases are across various lines, but the major lines are in one-to-one aids. Those are contract aids that support some of our special ed students who are placed in out-of-district placements, or for some would ride the bus with those students, a variety. So there's a substantial increase there, about $65,000. And then in legal fees, we are in negotiations this year with one of our bargaining units, and then next year we will be entering in with the other two. And then another area where we had somewhat of an increase is in our internet service provider. So that's increased quite a bit in those areas.
Thank you very much, I appreciate that.
One other area that also increased was the medical evaluations and neuro evaluations. These were up $35,000. Special education testing is up another $17,400. So there's sizable increases that are in the purchase services, but they're directly related to the program requirements that the schools are offering.
Steve, could you give me the number, the dollar amount for the neurological evaluations?
Neuro was a part of the medical evaluation, $35,000. The budget went up from a budgeted amount of $3,000 up to the $38,000 in the 14-15 budget.
It's my understanding that the school department was not doing any neurological evaluation, so I'm surprised at that information.
It's part of the evaluations. It's medical evaluations, which is psychological as well as neurological evaluations.
And is the
So it's a component
psychological,
of that one line item.
is it broken down psychological, neurological?
No, there is not.
Just captures everything in those areas. So the breakdown we could get for tomorrow if we needed to.
I really would like that, only because of different meetings that I've been at, that I heard the school department was not doing, so I would be interested in that. I also think that, part of what's happening, Tia, is, the response to intervention, and now the placement in special education, and, hear from a lot of people across the whole state, not just in South Kingstown, that it's difficult to get a child, into special education to receive services, and a lot of children are exited at the high school and placed on 504 plans, as you're well aware. But I think a lot of it is coming down with changes from the state, and, it's not just South Kingstown, it's across the whole state, so let your voice be heard. I know you have in the past, and I know you'll continue. Thank you. Steve?
Are there other questions as far as the school program is concerned for the 14-15 year?
I think we're good.
All right, if not, we'll go to the second column. The second column on the second page deals with the three programs in leisure service management. Peacedale office building, it's a $92,000 budget. It's up $350 from the current year. Just so all is aware, we have 9 rental units within that building that generate about $85,000. We also have self-supporting activities such as the yoga and Tai Chi and karate dance lessons that occur there. So we're generating about $100,000 to that $92,000 program cost. If there's no questions, I'll move on. Neighborhood Guild, I think everyone is familiar with the Guild program. The Guild operates for the different programs that are provided solely within the Guild property. I think folks are aware within the general fund there's a recreation program which deals with the programs that are off-site at each of the different recreation facilities or the town beach. We are looking at program revenues of about $345,000 of the $816,000 budget. The Neighborhood Guild has an endowment fund which provides virtually all of the cost of operating the facility and maintenance of the facility on a year-to-year basis. About $456,000 is anticipated in the 14-15 year, and that's up several $1,000s over the current year. We continue to service debt on the last $1 million that was used in improvements to that facility. Again, no tax dollars go into either the Peacedale offices or to the Neighborhood Guild programs. They're all self-supporting or through endowment. The last program on page 2 is the Senior Services Program. This identifies the 4 different programs that we operate within the seniors program. These include our transportation, our nutrition program, the adult day services program, and the senior center operation. Obviously, the nutrition program operates within the center, and the transportation program networks across the community and provides assistance to get people to and from the senior center, as well as to scheduled appointments and day-to-day activities with adult senior members of our community who do not have their own personal transportation. We're looking at about a 2.8% budget increase, or about $22,500 an increase. Of that increase, we receive funding. This is a shared services program. The town of Narragansett and North Kingstown contribute toward the programs that we operate because their residents use it both in the adult day services and at the adult and at the senior center, and participate in the nutrition program. This certainly provides us with great assistance. Narragansett's contributions next year will be about $115,000, and North Kingstown about $32,000 to defray out of that $805,000 program cost. If there's no questions as far as senior programs are concerned, there is tax dollars, and I should point out that we're looking at $378,000 in property tax that go to balance that budget based on the service requirements. That's up about 4% next year, or about $14,800. Our enterprise funds are presented on page 3. Page 3 starts with the Water Enterprise Fund. Again, as an enterprise fund, there is no tax dollars that go into this program. I will say that we are anticipating a major cost increase of about 8% in the budget for the water fund for the 2014-15 year. Major cost increases anticipated next year as a result of rate increases on the purchase of wholesale water from United Water. United Water has filed for a rate increase of 43%, where we have budgeted in anticipation of a 30% increase. That 30% increase will add about $50,000 in cost to the operations of the Middlebridge and South Shore water systems. In addition, during the 2014-15 year, we will be required under state statute to begin a new billing system. That billing system will require quarterly billing to each of our residents, users, and it will require a new rate structure. That rate structure will provide for a substantial increase. As you can see, we're talking about domestic sales revenue going from $719,000 all the way up to $841,000. We're expecting that the base cost for service will increase from $178 a year to $192 a year. We're also anticipating a need for a change in how water rates charge for high-volume users on the system. In the past, we've charged persons who use more than 5,000 cubic feet of water an excess fee. That excess fee was $2.90 per 100 cubic feet of excess water. Based on what the state is looking to do, which is to bill on a proportionate basis based on the more water you use, the higher the fee will be for that volume. We're looking to include only the first 1,250 cubic feet in each quarter, or the 5,000 cubic feet for the full year, but you would be given only 1,250 feet before you pay on excess in any one quarter. This will have varying impacts on different population groups. For year-round residents using in the $5,000 to $10,000 range, range, we're probably looking at increases between 7 and 12%. For seasonals, where all of their water volume we'll probably be looking at increases in excess of 15%. We have prepared the budget document in accord with the recommendations provided by the consultant that was used to evaluate and develop the new rate structure. We have developed the budget also assuming the 30% rate increase. Once the rate increase is finalized, we will also be reviewing the rate proposal from that and determine whether we can reduce any of the estimates that they've made. As you can see at this point, the rate structure proposed would generate about $43,000 more than is required to meet operational costs. When rate studies are done, they look at a 5-year future, and they look at what the projected cost would be in the 3rd year, where you'd be providing greater revenue sources in the first 2 years and lesser revenue sources in the latter 2 years, and only meeting actual operational cost in the 3rd. I don't really buy into the theory that this is the best methodology. We will be providing a recommendation to the council that will look at using on the outside what the revenue projections have been made and the rate structure as proposed by the consultant to what we think would be a more practical number in terms of trying to reduce what the overall cost would be. I'd also note that I expect that the residents in town using United Water will also see substantial increases because they will be seeing their residential bills go up based on that global 43% increase that was requested. Union Fire District and Union Fire District will also see some increases on the cost associated with lighting. We expect the lighting cost to increase by about 30%. So there's going to be global impacts within both South Kingstown and Narragansett as far as what the cost of water will be in the 2014-15 year. But prior to June 30th of this year, the council will be addressing the rate structure proposal and possibly a revision to that rate proposal that will be conducted at a public hearing. Yes, Meg?
I just have a question, because we've discussed this in the past, and I can't see.
Sorry, Meg, I'm not hearing.
I apologize. I don't know if John Chalk is here, but we've discussed it in the past, and this is a done deal, I guess, right now until we vote on this. But we've talked about this. This is a great increase for the people that live in town, and I can understand that there are increases that we have to incur. But we talked about the residual runoff and the leaks that we also have to endure. I don't know if United Water would be held responsible for all the runoff that exists. We talked about that at town council meetings, and I don't know if John wants to address that, but I just,
Let's be clear of a couple of things. Any type of water loss that we have within our own system is within our own pipe system. So if we have water loss after it goes through the meter, we have a leak detection program. In fact, your capital budget this year includes another $25,000 to continue to do leak detection and changes to the piping system if necessary.
okay, so we've made concessions for that, or, because my understanding is that gets passed on to the taxpayers. If
If we purchase the water and the water is lost either through hydrant use or through leakage within pipes, we've purchased the water.
okay,
That cost is going to be part of the rate base that we're using. We have to generate the revenue to pay for the water that we acquire from a wholesale provider. United Water is a wholesale provider. So yes, the cost associated with lost water will be substantially higher because there'll be a 30% rate increase associated with what we're paying for water. But we have been in detection programs for the last 4 years. We're having difficulty because both South Shore Water System and Middlebridge Water Systems are in high water table areas. It's very difficult to be able to determine where you have a leak if in fact the water pipe is buried in an area that is where there's water table is above the piping itself. So we've got those type of difficulties. but
Okay.
Those difficulties aren't associated with United Water. It is a fact that that the town of South Kingstown, town of Narragansett, and the Union Fire District, we combined operations and acted as a intervener into the water rate with the Public Utilities Commission. We hired a consultant that the three principals paid for, and we brought forward testimony on that rate structure. All of the information that we provided to the PUC was used as a means of being able to reduce the rate increase from the 43 target that had been by the company's proposal to what we expect to be a 31% increase. We had projected about $150,000 in cost reductions. Right now, they're looking at in excess of $165,000. So all of the reductions that we have been proposing for consideration have been heard by both the company and the PUC. We expect, though, that the rest of the rate increase that they've got justification for in terms of the capital expenditures that they have presented is going to require that 30% increase. I also testified before the Public Utilities Commission last month with my concern that we will be seeing an additional filing for an additional rate increase within the next 2 years because the Sherman tank is located off of South Road and Willard, is anticipated over the next year to also be reconstructed and at a sizable cost. So there's a lot of things that are going on within the water systems, but the construction that's necessary to feed the United Water System, which is now providing wholesale to Narragansett and to South Kingstown, as well as its core service group itself, have been justified based on our own consultant's review.
okay, thank you, I appreciate your response.
Are there other questions on water? If not, we'll move to the wastewater enterprise fund. Wastewater enterprise is also up about 6.5%. However, the revenue base continues to expand as additional residential construction occurs within the community. we're anticipating no rate increases for the 14-15 year in the rate structure for the wastewater system. Right now, the unit price is $229 per unit, residential unit, using 10,000 cubic feet of water use or less, and $2.90 for every 100 cubic feet used in excess of the 10,000. So at this point, we're anticipating that the rate structure will provide us with approximately $60,000 more than what the projected operational cost will be for the wastewater system. I'd also note for the record that this is another shared services program. We are providing wastewater facility services for both the town of Narragansett and the University of Rhode Island. URI is paying about 19% of the overall cost, and Narragansett's paying about 36%. I'm sorry, 45%, and South Kingstown's paying around 36% of our cost. One thing I would caution is that you'll see that the capital improvements or non-operational expenses are up considerably this year. Recognize that the wastewater program goes back to 1976, and we're still using original equipment for most of the facilities. We're seeing major increases in the capital cost for reconstruction or replacement of many of the pumping facilities, generators, or major components within the wastewater treatment plant, which is located in Narragansett. So we're going to continue to see capital facilities expenditures, but those costs will be shared with the regional partners of the university and the town of Narragansett based on their share of flow materials through that plant. Interestingly enough, they're processing right now over 922 million gallons of materials a year through that facility, as well as processing another 4.5 million gallons of septage, which is coming from the non-sewered areas of the two communities. So it's a major facility. It provides immeasurable environmental services for the communities, and fortunately we'll be able to hold prices again for the 14-15 year. If there's no questions on the Solid Waste Enterprise Fund, there are no changes recommended here. Again, no property taxes are used. The program is not just the operation of the transfer station, but it's also full payments on the debt service associated with the closeout of the Rose Hill landfill and the Plains Road URI dump site. If you recall, we borrowed about $2.95 million to pay for the direct costs associated with the closeout of those facilities. Debt service each year is around $265,000. The fee structure won't change. Bag tags will continue to be at $1.80. Yard bags will be at $1.25. And I think it's important to note South Kingstown's recycling rate is one of the state leaders at about 36% at this point. The more that we can increase that recycling rate, the more efficient we can become in terms of the overall operation. One other closing observation is that this is the last year of the existing contract with the third-party service provider that operates the transfer station on our behalf. We are looking at this point on whether or not a negotiated extension of that contract would be in the town's best interest in terms of being able to hold prices at current rates. Those changes will have to be made and new contract determinations made for the 15-16 year. The last presentation on page 3 gives you a summary of each of the different programs, the eight budgets that I've just walked through. Overall, we're looking at a net increase in cost of $469,000 over the restated 2013-14 budget amounts. That's a 0.52% increase in expenses. So again, the overall general fund is up 0.9, and our taxes that we're anticipating tax increase is about 1.2%. If there's no questions, I'll just briefly address the resolutions on the back page.
I just want to make sure that would anybody have any questions? Please come to the mic at this time. Jonathan, I'm sorry, Steve. Steve, I'm sorry, Jonathan.
I got here late, and I apologize. I had a work appointment that ran a little long. But I had a question about the library fund. I don't know if it has been talked about in previous conversations or about Sunday hours at the library. And so that's just something that I was interested in. The reason I ask is when I'm there on Saturday, actually just about every time I'm there, those computers get some really, really high use. And it seems like Saturday as well. And so I don't know what the expense would be. I don't know if it's been talked about, but I would, it's amazing the use that they get. And so I think that there is a need in the community apparently. So.
Anybody have a response?
I think when you go back to the initial budget hearing that we had on December 18th, the direction that we provided to staff was to prepare a base budget without expanded program. And we did not ask staff to provide any expansions in service hours at the library. If we have in the past provided cost estimates associated with that, we can provide that again. I can answer the question more directly tomorrow night. I'll have numbers by then. But at this point, we have not asked any of the departments to do expansions in service programs.
Thank you. I just had a few questions, and first one is to Maureen Carter. Are we all set with the group home aid with the General Assembly? I see that there was a resolution. Are we all set with that, Maureen? Or still a worry?
I'm not quite sure what you mean by all set.
Funding, have they secured? Have you gotten any word from the General Assembly that we're safe with the group home aid?
As far as the group home aid goes this year, from the RIDE perspective, it's safe and in the budget this year.
Okay.
The resolution was to ensure that it continues because it is vital to us in the education of the students who are in the group homes. Because that $300,000, $315,000 that we get in aid pays for probably about 50% of the cost of educating those students. So it would be a devastating loss to us if we were to lose that aid.
Right. The other question that, just following up from prior meetings, I didn't know if there was any more information with, this probably would go to Dale, with the polling places and expanding the staff. Is there any new information on that, or still the same? Okay, so there's new information. Thank you. And then I didn't know if there was any other new information on cameras on the buses with the school committee. Are you still pursuing cameras on the buses?
Our buses, internally on the buses or externally?
Replacing the
external
bus
cameras.
monitors, like under the buses too?
Okay, so just to be clear, our buses all have internal cameras that monitor the behavior inside the buses. But the external, where we're mounting the cameras, actually we had a test bus with the cameras mounted, and we looked at it and made some modifications to it. So one of the brackets needs to change the direction on the camera. But the process is going well, and we'll continue to pilot it for this year and then make some recommendations based on the few buses that we outfit with the electronics this year.
Great.
Whether that will eventually replace monitors or not, we're not sure, but it will add a degree of safety to the buses either way.
Thank you. Jonathan?
I just would like to share a couple thoughts.
Hopefully they're positive.
I'm a very positive person, but I do have concerns. So I just want to, it does feed a little bit off of what Ms. Beckman is sharing. I think that there are reasons to be concerned, and I think that the process of questioning what we're doing and are we making the right decisions is positive, because to me that shows that the concern and the caring about our education is high. And what I've felt since I've been serving is the process has become too streamlined and a lot of rubber stamping. I'm just using that as a kind of a general statement. And so that actually, to me, is not positive. That's negative because people are just ready to sign off on it and not look at it too deeply. So I just want to share, as I looked at it, the NECAP scores have not been shared to the school committee. As I've looked at it, our NECAP scores are flat over 5 years. They're still very good. We're still in the top echelon of school districts, but there are other school districts that have passed us looking at the NECAP scores. Okay, so it's not like we've hit the pinnacle and now we've capped out, because there's other districts around us, some of our neighbors in other districts in the state have caught us and are now past us. And so I think we need to be, I think this community, we have a jewel. Our schools are a jewel. This community is a jewel, okay? But we need to protect it. And you don't just have a jewel. If you have a jewel and you don't take care of it, you may lose it, okay? We haven't lost it yet, in my opinion, but I do feel, from my perspective, how things are going, I'm concerned, okay? So the NECAPs, they're not the end-all be-all, okay, but that is a legitimate measurement of how school districts are supposed to be considered. So it's a very legitimate concern. I don't think that it necessarily should be tied to graduation, but in terms of looking at how a school district is performing compared to other school districts, it's very legitimate. Enrollment has gone down. We've talked about it in the meetings. I don't know what people follow, what people don't follow, so I'm just going to say that the town council does have a role in student enrollment. I'm just going to quote this one piece. It's so clear. Growth management program says that the growth management program, one of the reasons for it is to lessen student impact on the town school system. So there is a role. I think elected officials need to stop. I'm sorry, I don't mean to offend. I don't mean to be critical. How I brought this forward in a positive way to say, why don't we just talk about this? Okay? So I think the town council does have a role in student enrollment. That does impact the budget, so it's a very legitimate point to make tonight. This is a budget meeting. Enrollment impacts the budget. The town council needs to look at how they want to impact enrollment, because it says very clearly that they do have a role in it. On the school side, we have great schools, but people are opting out of our school system. And over the course of the last 6 months or so, on a few occasions, I have asked our administration and our school committee, let's look at why this is. I think one of the main reasons is people are sick and tired of the testing, and some of the other private schools aren't as wrapped up. They don't have the same requirements. They're not wrapped up in all of this testing foolishness. It's too much. But we don't know that definitively. And that does impact the budget, because if people are opting out of our public school system, if it's because of testing, the school committee needs to do what it can do to change that. If there's other reasons, we need to know what those reasons are. Are people concerned about the amount of support that the children get? We don't know. So I'm not being critical. I'm being very positive to say that I care. My kids, I've had 5 kids. One has graduated South Kingstown Public Schools. I still have 4 in South Kingstown Public Schools, but my youngest are in 6th grade. So I'm actually at the point where it's like, you know what? All this craziness that's going on in these public schools, they're going to be out soon. And so I'm going to make it. But there's a lot of people that have young children that really should be concerned about how the children are being educated, how our schools are being run. And I'm being incredibly positive because I care enough to speak up about it and say we should have a conversation about it.
Thank you. Just in response, Jonathan, I don't want to go back and forth with the dialogue.
I've said what I've needed.
The park assessment, switching from the kneecap to the park assessment, I think that our school district has been very positive in taking a leadership role in planning for that and trying to meet the needs of some of the children that have not met success. So being a former educator, I was very supportive and very happy to hear about some of the plans that the school committee has put in place in reference to switching from the kneecap to the park assessment and really looking at those students that, you know, possibility may not be meeting success. So I was excited about that. As far as town council not addressing growth management, I do remember a meeting that you came and you spoke at the microphone, and you know, the growth management piece that you were quoting, you know, was addressing the needs of the community at the time. I cited many, many examples. I believe you had even requested a handout that we had at the town council table. So I do believe that there was a town council response, and I beg to differ, but and respectfully disagree. It's probably something that will be looked at in the future with the declining of enrollment and people opting out of the schools. You know, I'm not sure. I have not heard that people are tired of testing, and that's why they're switching schools. So maybe in the future there will be a form that parents can fill out why they choose to move their students to another, you know, form of education. But I know, being a retired teacher for 3 years now and teaching for 34 years, there's always been an increase, you know, Hendricken, you know, as the kids get older, there's, you know, people choose and people have the choice, and so be it. And I don't see that is increasing. And John, if I could request those numbers for tomorrow night, is there an increase in the drop of enrollment for kids switching to other, you know, forms of education? I would appreciate that, so that maybe we can put that conversation to rest.
Are we on? I would just point out that we continue to see children and students come back to our district from the charter schools. And we had a high enrollment in the charter schools of about 150 kids, and we're down to 89. And if you look at some of the programs, as we said, this is a program-based budget, and if you look at some of the programs that we're instituting in our preschool, in our alternative high school over at Hazard, and now we're looking at an international baccalaureate program at the high school, I think you'll see those programs attract students into our schools and not away from them.
Right. Other comments from town council members,
Just a really quick comment.
please?
I don't know the answer to the enrollment, but I do know that it's speculative. These are like speculative phrases that are being used. All I'm asking for is for the school department, and I would think that the town council would want to know, what are the numbers, like you just said, what are the numbers, how many, and why? Because the speculation, we've been speculating for forever. So why not stop the speculation? Let's see if we can actually figure it out.
Meg, did you have a question?
Excuse me, no, but Jonathan, I respect your opinion absolutely, but I do think that you're going to see the decline in the enrollment because that's the nature of the beast right now, truthfully. And I know that's probably not your question, but I don't know if people are leaving because they're overly concerned about what's going on in the school system. You may feel differently because you have children still in the school system. My children have graduated, and as many on the town council. I will have nothing but positive things to say about the high school. We had a wonderful experience with both my children. I can only speak for myself, but my brother also has 4 children in the South Kingstown school system, and they had some issues, and they pulled one of their children out with an issue. So I don't want to go into personal issues with that, but I think the school system does a wonderful job, and There might be some perks in the system that can be worked on, but we'll deal with those. We'll deal with those.
Any other comments, Town Council? Please come to the microphone. If you could just state your name for the record, thank you.
Hi, sure, yeah, my name's Donna Doyle, and just to address this discussion, I wasn't quite sure the right point to interject. This is actually my first town council meeting. I came specifically for the school budget issue because I have concerns, and some of my concerns are less programmatic and more facility-based. But I moved from Cheraho back when my son was going into kindergarten, specifically sought out your school district and came to South Kingstown to raise my 2 children here because of the schools. And I think there are a lot of wonderful teachers, and I've been, for the most part, very happy with the school. But some of my concern is this people catching up in other districts and moving past. I thought I was moving into a really solid district. I think my kids are high performers, and my frustration and why I actually am considering pulling out with a girl in 8th grade and a son graduating, and frustration of him spending 4 years in a facility that really has been neglected. And I understand there's been a lot of budgetary concerns, and there's a lot of emphasis placed on this is not programmatic cutbacks, that we're keeping everything we have in place for the kids curriculum-wise. But at some point, and I know that it's being finally addressed this year, and I'm thrilled because I've been agitating about it, you got to take care of business with that school. And if I don't take care of my home and the roof falls in, what do I got left? I'm walking around that school, and I know that people in the elementary schools are very involved. They're part of PTO, they're doing the book fairs, they're in the schools maybe a little bit more, and as the kids head to high school, you get into your jobs, you're not physically in the building as much, they don't want you in the building as much, maybe the kids don't want you in the building as much.
That's true. That's so true. That's true.
But,
True.
Much to their chagrin, I've been that mom that continues to try to be in the school and, walk around open house. It's, I have to say, it's really, it's disappointing, the condition of the facilities, and if you haven't really taken a good look around lately, and I know I've met with John, and I've met with Kristen, and I've talked to the principals, and I've written nice emails, and I've written sort of nasty emails to try to effectuate some change, and I'm willing to grab a paintbrush or do a fundraiser or wash cars or whatever needs to get done, but I'll tell you, that's one of the biggest reasons I'm talking about pulling out, because I don't want my kid who spends more time in that school than they do in my home. I clean my home, I paint my home, I maintain my home, and the conditions in that school right now are not one that I'm proud of as a South Kingstown resident. This is a great town, and my sense is that this town financially has the resources to maintain a better facility than that. And I don't, I struggle with the numbers. This is not my forte. I've got a biology background, and to nitpick over numbers is difficult for me, but I will say the general gist of what I'm saying to you is care about that facility both inside and out. It's beyond me how this, the yard work, the landscaping, all that gets divvied up and paid for separately than town. I think there needs to be some increased pride in how it looks from the outside and how it looks from the inside, because I've coached a significant amount with different teams. I've traveled to other schools in districts that are financially much more strapped than we are, where the schools are struggling to perform anywhere in the ballpark of South Kingstown. But man, I'll tell you what, those kids are walking around some clean, painted, beautiful hallways, some beautiful sports facilities. They're being offered some wonderful technological opportunities. And it's disconcerting to me that I picked a district that I thought was a high performer, and I don't feel that pride in just the appearance, especially of the high school, more than any other building. And it's beyond dated. I joke that it feels like a juvenile detention facility from the 60s. I'm not the only one that feels that way. And there's a lot of scuttlebutt around town. I would like to know those numbers of people bailing out, because I feel like I'm one of them that is having a hard time rationalizing, letting my next child just sort of stay in that environment where it just is not great. And you go other places and you look and you go, wow, they're really bringing it. So from that perspective, do with it what you will, but I think that really there needs to be some, after coming out of these difficult budgetary times, you got to take a chunk of change and put it to fixing up that building, because people are pulling out of their cars at these games at the school, and I've heard reactions when they're having JV football games on the field behind the school and there aren't even goalposts. Okay, and when you're pulling up and you're seeing, when I'm spending hours behind the building weeding and landscaping because I'm embarrassed because there's going to be a meeting that night for incoming freshmen, or there's going to be a concert where the town's coming and the stuff hasn't been pruned and there's weeds in the walkway, and it's aesthetically really disappointing. So both inside and out, stairwells that are peeling, and so I know we're finally looking to address some of that. I would just encourage you to, I'll open up my wallet if you'll open up yours. It needs to be done. It's overdue.
Thank you, Donna. Did anybody want to speak in reference to, just so that the public's aware of the facility
Yes,
audit?
I think that in the, this budget here is basically for the running of the school, not the physical plan. And I think we started to address that in our capital budgets this year, if I'm not incorrect, Steve. I think we had a program, like a 5-year program, and it goes also into other playing fields and centers for the basketball team to play and things like that. But I think a lot of it was infrastructure, technology, and also fixing up the school. I don't have that folder in front of me.
Carol brought up the point, if I'm not mistaken, about doing the,
Courtyard,
Courtyard.
but that's a separate project. That's not taxpayer dollars. That's donations and Champlain, grants from the
Grants.
Champlain Foundation, I believe. But I do think we had in the capital budget the stairwells this year. Was that for this coming year? That's right.
Yeah, I think if you back up and start for a second, one of the things that the council asked, going back 3 years ago, was to have a facility study conducted for all of the buildings within the school system. The facilities study was finally concluded last year. It was finished with the phase 1 was completed, I think, in June of last year. I then used that in conjunction with the school administration to develop a capital improvement program over the next 5 years that would spend about $6.5 million on improvements within the different school facilities. The first year of that program, in the 14-15 year, for the high school, the school administration targeted $425,000 to be expended on stairwell renovations and another $480,000 for corridor renovations in the following year. One of the concerns that they had was, could they get all of those projects done simultaneously? And my concern in any capital improvement is to do it once and do it right. And I recommended to them that they stay with the stairwells as a single project for this summer, and have the corridors that also need to be addressed in the following year. One of the things that's changed as far as school facilities improvements is that the State Department of Education now requires us to file pre-applications. The application that the school department had to file is contained in 2 folders that are about 6 inches thick. The amount of work that the school administration had to do just to get the applications filed really took almost 18 months. So I think we're trying to address the issues. We also have $4 million in bonding that's going to be on the agenda, on the ballot before this November. There's $1 million that's currently available in bonding authorization. There's $903,000 that the school committee has agreed, and the council has agreed to allow to be spent out of undesignated fund balance for the schools to be able to initiate the work in 14-15. And the first bonding will be done in 15-16. We've got a way to go, and certainly, once I had seen your email and saw the facilities, I agree with you that there has to be expedited improvements made to those facilities. But having said that, I also say to you that from a program management standpoint, I want to make sure that the schools have the proper resources in place to make sure that the money is properly spent. And that's what I'm going to attempt to do. It's not my job, but it's my job to hopefully be able to act as a facilitator in terms of working with John and Kristen to get those things done. And I think the council's made the commitment with that $6.5 million. I think the school committee, with the designation of the undesignated fund balance for these programs, has also made the commitment to get that work done. But you are dealing with a building that was first constructed in 1954. So, you know, other than John, all of us were born after that. But
Oh, that's not true, Steve.
But it's a case where that building is certainly not going to meet what today's standards if somebody was building a new building. But I think we certainly can make it look different than it does currently.
And sadly, Steve is correct on the birth dates. But I would just add, too, I would thank Mrs. Doyle because she has worked with us in pointing out some of the areas in the schools. She's also serving on our building committee as we go forward with a lot of these projects. So I do thank her for her time. And I would also like to point out that, you know, over the years, as we mentioned, we've had tight budgets. But during those tight budgets, I would thank the town for supporting us in making sure that the building envelopes in those buildings have been taken care of. Cosmetically, we're addressing some of the concerns in the corridor project in the coming year. The following year, I mean the stairwell project in the coming year. The following year, we'll be looking at the corridors. And then the year after that, we'll be doing some renovations up on the third floor of the high school, which would take in the home ec room and various labs in that area. So I think cosmetically you'll see a big difference over the next 3 years. But I can assure you that over the years, the envelopes have been taken care of, the roofs and the mechanical systems in the buildings. So.
I guess the one budgetary thing I wanted to add to that is my understanding when I first started sort of agitating about some of this is that there had been $75,000 put aside each year for maintenance, and then it dropped substantially, and then it was zeroed out. And I'm not suggesting it needs to be Disney, where we paint the second something is somewhat worn. And I agree. I saw the binders. I was blown away at the level of trying to tackle a large project and the approvals and the filed in triplicate that needed to occur. I just would like to see a little more basic maintenance, you know, whether there's a maintenance fund that something can occur ongoing so it doesn't get to that point. I feel like, and maybe we were just in such dire economic times that something had to be done over the last X number of years. But when I became aware of it, and I was very disheartened, you know, going into it. And now one child has spent 4 years with it, with, I would dare say, little improvement, if any. So awesome that there's roofs and awesome that there's walls. I would have liked him to come home one time and say, wow, they painted a hall. They fixed a chair. I got a door on my stall in the bathroom. Just even if it's, you know, it feels like a drop in the bucket when I look at these numbers. $75,000, $50,000, some sort of maintenance fee so that the kids that are there would see some effort and have some pride. The kids are doing it. They're doing murals, and they're not seeing it met by the school at all. You know, I'm told there's a lot of money, like they gotta change those air filters, that's great. Hopefully my kid, you know, is breathing cleaner air. I just think it would go a long way if they saw some physical improvements on an ongoing basis so that you didn't let things get to the point that they get, and then we gotta file 6 notebooks to fix it. You know, just little here, right? Little paint in the molding, walk around your house, paint the molding. Maybe you don't do the walls every year, but you do the molding. You do that door that's all dug up that everyone's gonna see when they come in to go to the auditorium for a big townwide presentation. Just a little goes a long way. That's what I'm asking for.
Thank you, Donna. Meg?
Sometimes, excuse me, sometimes it takes one person to stimulate a crowd, and I'm proud of you. I'm really proud of you tonight, because your comments are probably not comments that a whole bunch of people came out to make tonight. But you are a concerned citizen, and it's our responsibility to hear what you have to say and see if we can make a change for whatever the masses may be. I thank you. I thank you very much.
Steve, on that, the bond issue that we were just talking about that we're proposing for the next election, you said it was a $4 million bond issue towards the schools. How much of that would go towards the high school?
About over the 5-year period, almost 2 million,
How much?
almost 2 million.
2 million. And that would all be in physical improvements?
Yeah, what they're looking at is that each year, it's about 425 in the first year, 550, 400. It depends on the projects. But again, it's not just the high school that needs improvements.
Right.
Curtis Corner has got
Right.
issues that have to be addressed. So too does Wakefield, so too
Right.
does Matunic, so too does West Kingston. So some of these things are dealing with HVACs. I did want to address one thing. I don't think the school committee or any budgets that I've reviewed are without the maintenance dollars. In fact, in the maintenance budget for the 14-15 year, between equipment and general maintenance and repairs that are non-student related, there's over $112,000 for maintenance equipment and $172,000 for equipment maintenance within the school maintenance department. So the school committee is committing dollars toward the maintenance. I can't address how those are being used. All I'm saying to you is that from a budgetary standpoint, the dollars are there that are available for expenditure for general maintenance. You've seen the documents that were necessary for the facilities analysis. There are a lot of maintenance issues that can be addressed that are outside of the scope of capital improvement.
I also want to mention, Donna, on this next election, most likely there'll be a bond issue for a community gym that we're proposing that would also be used by the high school students. So all the games would be there, some of the practices, but this would be part of our, what you were talking about, the coming to games, out-of-towners coming to play against our kids, and our showcase facility for the sports. So this would be over at the Dominic Savio property, which is over near the Y, and it would be used by the different schools, but I think that might address some of the problems, but that again wouldn't be, next year. I think we were talking, 2016 as a possibility for that. So that would be another, that will benefit the high school. I guess we've looked at whether or not to change the gym over there, but this seems a more appropriate use of the money. We have more room, parking, all of that. And it's very close, and then you've got Broad Rock nearby, got the high school. So that's something else to look at, that we'll be having more discussions on that here at the town council as we move along. So just so you'd be aware of that.
Dr. Anthony Mega?
I certainly think that one of our challenges is that we're quite building rich. We own quite a few buildings for educational purposes. So obviously the maintenance get spread across many needs. And we spoke only of the high school, but most of these buildings are aged buildings other than Broad Rock, and that's pretty close to getting aged too. And certainly at a point in time, we're going to have discussions again about the number of buildings we're operating for the students we have in this district. And that just spreads the money around. That's the reality of it. Steve pointed out what I was going to point out too, that money is dedicated to maintenance and repairs. Don has been an incredible advocate. We're going to tap into you in regards to the courtyard project. I'm really proud of the folks in town who have worked towards that, along with the administration of the high school, teachers at the high school, students at the high school, and I think it's going to help beautify that building. I think what happens in those four walls, within those four walls, is, in the most part, successful, not totally successful. I think we recognize, the school committees recognize, and the administration, areas for improvement, targeting things like improving the graduation rate. I will say, on the good news side, is that one of the students who are graduating this year was accepted into Penn, Columbia, Brown Med, and Yale. And so you can succeed at South Kingstown High School in many different levels, including moving on to very fine higher academic institutions.
I also think, Tony, that the courtyard project may have the domino effect of getting more projects going, so people will get interested. You look, if you have the beautiful courtyard that is starting April vacation, I believe, they're starting the cleanup, then you have this beautiful outdoor courtyard with, it's going to have state-of-the-art green space, right? Is that what we call it? Or, and I think that will start a domino effect. Maybe more projects can happen, more fundraising, maybe grants to continue that into the building. And I believe there's a lot of energy, solar panels and retention of your own water. I mean, it's a great project. You're probably very familiar with it.
It's all good, I just want some classrooms painted.
Classrooms painted.
I see
So those
13
classrooms, when they're
file
looking
cabinets
out there.
upstairs, and some of the classrooms that are undesignated are really in a sorry state. It's basic. I mean, and I'm a coach, but to be honest, I don't put an emphasis on that. I want my kids who are sitting in a classroom to not be feeling like they're in a disrespected, uninspired space. Because it all goes around. And
Right.
you can't expect these teachers and the kids to bring their A game when they're sitting in a C game room.
Okay, any parting comments? Maureen?
I would just
Dr.
make,
Carter?
I won't repeat what staff says so much better, or Dr. Mega has just said, but yes, I appreciate your advocacy, and even more than that, I appreciate the fact that you work with the administration to be part of the solution, so thank you.
Last minute comments, any other school committee member? Town council? Public? Okay, my parting comments are thanking the school committee as well as the town council, Steve Alford, Kristen Stringfellow, Trish Sunderland, welcome aboard, first budget cycle. John Rashat. How many budget cycles for you now, John? Too many. And mostly all of our staff. I really want to let the staff know on behalf of the school department and the town, we truly appreciate it. We're going to get you, Steve, to the bonds. We're not going to let that go yet. And appreciate the collaboration that we all experience here on behalf of the town. With that said, we're going to move into the referendums.
It's resolutions.
The bonds, resolutions, sorry.
The resolutions simply place the actions that have been directed in the budget developments. First one is taking the capital budget and distributing it to the various capital reserve funds. This way it removes them from the general fund itself so that the money is specifically targeted for the activity that was identified in the capital budget. The second one is the school department transfer to a capital reserve fund. The reason that's done is because that $25,000 in technology improvements is eligible for state reimbursement on the 30% aid. The resolutions 3, 4, and 5 deal solely with revenues that come into the general fund from the fair share development fees for the schools and for the recreation debt service, and also for the open space acquisitions. That's debt service again. So we pay debt service, but we're using dollars that come from those fair share development fees or from real estate conveyance taxes. Item number 6 of the resolutions provides direct reimbursement of the general fund from the Peacedale Offices Building, Senior Services Program, and Neighborhood Guild for accounting and payroll services. The South Road Reserve, that's money that's held from rent that's been collected for private sector use of that school building. It's now being used, that $10,000 is to pay the debt service associated with the last roof repair that occurred on that building several years ago. EMS billing services, that's also a revenue that comes to the general fund to pay down the cost of emergency medical services that are provided through the general fund. Those are the dollars that are collected from insurance fees that are collected for those persons that are insured that are using the EMS services. Item number 7 is the transfers from the general fund to the 3 programs that get tax dollars. That being the school fund, the senior program, and the wastewater transfer is $4,300 that goes to the wastewater fund because we have a wastewater employee that's dealing with septic systems. So since it's being dealt with septic systems, it needs to come out of tax dollars because it's not coming out of the conventional sewer system rate base. We also have the Neighborhood Guild endowment funds need to be authorized to be transferred into the Neighborhood Guild Fund. And number 9 is a transfer from the police department's budget for vacation and retirement reimbursements of $100,000 that'll be held in the compensated absences fund so that there is an impact on the general fund with retirement of persons that are entitled to vacation and retirement, vacation sick leave reimbursement fee. And that they're employment for the town. Those are the 9 resolutions that will be approved as a component of the budget if the budget's adopted as presented in the preliminary budget on April 28th. Glad to answer any questions on any of the resolutions that are here tonight, if there are any.
Carol?
I just had one more question on the high school, and I don't know if, John, you would answer this, or Steve, but when was the last time it was painted on the inside? And do you do it in one shot, or how does that work?
There hasn't been any major repainting in the high school in quite some time, but we do small pieces of painting as we go along, and in the past, what we did, and I think Mrs. Doyle was probably referring to it, which was talking about maintenance dollars, we've rotated from money in the budget of $30,000 to $50,000 a year, either for paint or for vehicle replacement, and that's rotated back and forth, and so that $50,000 wouldn't really make a big impact on the high school, but the $50,000 is to target certain rooms in a variety of our schools across the board. As Dr. Mega said, we're building rich, and we do have a lot of schools and a lot of rooms to paint. So yes, we've done some targeted painting at the high school, but no major painting of classrooms or hallways. You know, like I said, the $50,000 wouldn't really make a big impact on that school. But what we've recently started doing over the last year is when our maintenance folks are in the buildings over the weekends for special events, they double up as painters, and they've been painting, and they've been doing some of the stairwell painting. They've been doing some painting in classrooms and some of the trim painting. So
Would that ever be something that you could consider, to, like, painting the entire inside of the school, just to, you know, like she says, brighten it up? Is that like, I don't even know what that would cost. I can only imagine, because it is a huge building.
That would be quite expensive, but when we talk about the project with the corridors, you'll see that major brightening up and cleaning up, because there'll be a lot of paint work done in the corridors, there'll be some tile replacement in the corridors, there'll be ceiling tiles replaced in those corridors, floor tiles, a variety of things. Trim around the doors will be replaced and painted, so you'll see a general facelift to the cosmetic appearance of the high school.
Yeah, and I think a few years ago, redid the gym floors, and they painted the whole gym, and it certainly made a difference at that time. But I can't, what was that, 3 years ago, maybe?
The gym floors, we did a major facelift in the gym, I think, 3 years ago. But each year, we do refinish the gym floors, because they just, with all the use and the games and the phys ed classes, they take a beating. So they are stripped and refinished each year.
And was it volunteers that painted the walls in there, or was that an expense incurred by the school? I can't.
There was some volunteer painting, but I think the major paint work in the gym was out of the district budget.
Thank you.
Do they still do the makeover day at the high school, or is that now gone away? I know Rose Caleo, I can remember, I don't know if it was back when I was on the school committee, but there was a makeover day, and the kids all came in and they painted, and Rose Caleo spearheaded that whole program at the high school. Does that still happen?
Yeah, that's still going on. They do a variety of things. I think a couple of years back was a major paint project, and it was led by one of our students who was a senior and has now graduated. But others have stepped in, and the makeover day will continue. And it takes in a variety of things, as I said. Some of it's painting, some of it's outdoor work on the landscape, or just cleaning up the outdoor grounds and the fields. So it takes a different perspective each year.
Right. Thank you. Okay. Mr. Alford, anything else?
Nothing to add.
We're ready to adjourn. Can I have a motion, please?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. We're officially adjourned at 8:52.